I want to talk to you guys about making sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people and going only to places and locations where you feel aligned. And I just want to share with you guys an observation that I had. Um, the moment that I started observing, right? So I stepped out of my system and I was just observing. I started to notice that, I had all of these friends, right? And when I put them on the scale, right, to see if they were really, friends, I began to notice a disturbing pattern, right? A lot of the friends that I had, and this is me being a giver, being a loving person, always, doing the Christian thing, so to speak, right? I started observing that the people that I were surrounding myself with, they were never bad people. Look, if the world was easy as good people and black people, I mean good people and black people, but good good people and bad people, it would be so easy to choose friends, right? Because you would be like, well, I know he's a good person, I know he's a bad person. I'm not, it would be so easy. But the thing about picking friends is they have both redeemable and bad qualities at the same time. So it's never like this simple, oh, this person's bad for me, this person's good for me. In some instances, there's clearly cases where, yeah, you can see that, obviously, but it's not always that simple. And so what happened is I started looking at these people and, I'm not saying that I'm perfect at it or anything like that, but I slowly just started taking a step back. I didn't stop picking up their phone calls. If they texted me, I would reply, but I would stop engaging them with the same amount of energy as I used to before. Like I had a friend, we used to always engage in these like philosophical arguments, and I realized a long time ago that I was never going to change his mind, and he was more than likely never. He was never going to change his mind. He was never going to change his mind. He was never going to change my mind. But he just liked, but I think he liked the idea of just, arguing for the sake of arguing about things, right? And every time I would argue or we would have these debates, I think I would always go with, okay, if he's right, I'll let him know he's right. Or if I'm wrong, I can admit I'm wrong, right? Because ultimately my allegiance is to the truth, not to a truth, but the truth, right? And so, I just stopped engaging, I stopped, entertaining all of this, negativity. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You got me. You know? And when I started doing that, they were like, wait, what's going on? I was like, nothing, you're right. And so I know they could tell that my energy had shifted, right? And, a few weeks ago, I went up to a friend of mine's. She's a very, very dear friend of mine. I love her to death. But I refuse to re enter, her energy field, right? If we could just, I'm just using these terms. Hopefully, you guys are understanding what I'm saying. But I refuse to, you know, entertain the foolishness. Like, because it was like, she was a good friend, but, it was at my expense too. She would suck my energy dry. And that's the honest truth. And here's the thing, you don't know what you don't know what you don't know. And the unspoken agreement we had was, yeah, I'll help you and support you, but you gotta let me take all your energy. You know how you know someone is a bad influence for you or someone's bad for you in general? Like, observe yourself, how you feel after you have a conversation with that person. Do you feel depleted? Do you feel energized? Do you feel sad? Because that's what they're transferring to you. And so every time, and it wasn't until someone, I was at an event one day, and I was like, yeah. They were like, how so and so? I was like, I think she's good. And she said, yeah, man, she's cool, but she sucks my energy dry. And when she told me that, I kind of just pinned it in my head. I was like, that's interesting. And so you got to understand something. When you make the decision to do better for yourself, not even do better for yourself, picking yourself instead of picking other people, your life is going to start to change. And it's been about a month since I started, switching, things. And to be completely honest with you, my life has never felt more peaceful, more stress free. Like, I feel like my life is a lot more calmer, more relaxing. All because I just cut some people out. And so it's true, man. Who you surround yourself is so important. And so, would I ever go back? Let me tell you about the friend, right? So, and I'm gonna try and conclude it with this. So, I stepped back from her, even though she was my dear friend. And I didn't. If she would call, I would pick up the phone. If she texted, I would text her back. But I just refused to enter the role of this game. And so, something told me I was going to this event, and something told me that she was going to be there, right? And sure enough, I saw her, and I said, "Hey, girl." And she walked over to me, and I hugged her, and I gave her love. And what's interesting is, you know, there was nowhere where I was sitting. There was nowhere to sit. I mean, it was completely packed. She was like, "I sure don't want to sit outside." And I was like, "I know," but I told her, like, "You might have to." You know what I mean? And but I told her I'll come find you later so we could talk a little bit. And so I talked for a little bit, and I usually don't last long at these things, right? So then I went over to I talked to everybody, and then I went over to her table, and you know I said, "What's going on?" And we talked for a little bit, and then we started talking, and she was like, "Where you been?" I said, "Girl, I've been here working." You know what I'm saying? Same old, same old. But it was like the way she asked me was like very, very like penetrating, right? She was like, "How you been?" That's what I said. I've been good. But the way she said it was something about it. She was trying to like and trying to get information, right? To see if I've been doing good without her. You know what I mean? And basically, what I told her was, I said, "I've been doing good, just working." And then out of nowhere, she got upset with me. Not out of nowhere. I knew why she was going to be upset, but I was just surprised that it came out in that moment. She said, "You know that I don't do this hot and cold stuff." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She said, "I haven't heard from you in about 3 weeks." And I told her, I said, "I've been here," you know what I'm saying? And it's not that, I would call her about once a week, to kind of check up on her. But every time I would call her, it was always some drama, something crazy that had happened, a slight that she had perceived. And I was like, I'm just not gonna call her for that. So I never forget this. One day I called her, and she was like, "Oh, so and so did that." I was like, "Hold on, let's just talk positive. Don't tell me anything negative." And the moment that I told her to stop telling me anything negative, we stopped having conversations. We literally stopped having conversations the moment I told her that, that we need to talk more about more positive things. So look at your life, right? What friends do you only gossip with, or do you or only talk about negative things? You know what I mean? And so finally, she was upset. I mean, really upset. And I was kind of surprised. Look at this helicopter passing by. But finally, I had, you know, she was like, I'm just observing her, right? And she kind of put like, I felt like she shut the door in my face. Like she was really angry. And for nothing, I hadn't done nothing to her. And, after I left, that was really traumatizing because, after she said, well, no, I don't want, if you can't do that, then we can't be friends. Essentially, is what she said. I'm not saying she said that. It's essentially what she said. And so she shut the door in my face, and I hadn't done nothing. And I guess I felt guilty, but, I just refused to re enter that toxic energy. And that's the reality. And all I told her is, I want to talk about positive things. And she kind of felt like I was shutting her down. You know what I mean? But if we're not talking about positive things, then what are we talking about? And it's okay to vent, but what are we talking about? And so in the end, when I was leaving, she didn't even wave to me. That's how upset she was. And I haven't called her since. Not because I don't love her, but because, you know, she shut the door in my face. But the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude all of this is, if you have friends where you're just talking about negative things, they aren't really your friends. Friends pour into one another. Not financially, but energetically with positivity. And so I encourage you today to look at your friendships and see kind of what you got going on. And listen, I knew years ago, we cannot be friends if all we do is talk about other people. That's not a real friend. If all we do is talk about other people when we talk to entertain ourselves, then we're not really friends. And I'm at the stage in my life where I'm opening up to more friendships that pour into me and I pour into them. So I just want to encourage you. Look at the friends you have around you. Tell me who you roll with, and I'll tell you who you are. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know if you've ever been through anything like this before. What was your experience? Let me know in the comments. I genuinely love to read the comments. So yeah, let me know. See you guys later. Bye.